Welcome to another workshop offered by the Office of Work Life at the University of Kentucky, Work Life and Benefits. And we offer monthly workshops for our working parents to support them in their role as parent. And today we're going to be actually talking about kinship support. And so, kinship, these will be family members or friends even that are supporting or raising someone else's child. Could be a cousin, could be a grandchild. And so we're talking about supporting kinship families today. And our guest speaker is Sheila Rentfrow. And thank you, Sheila, for being with us today.
Thank you so much, Izetta. I sure appreciate the opportunity to be here to talk about kinship and, to meet some new folks here within the UK system. So I'm excited to be here. I do encourage you all to ask questions if you have any. We offer a lot of supports here at UK. I'm just excited to talk about that. So if you all are ready, we can go ahead and get started. Can you all see my PowerPoint okay? Is that good? Okay. All right, well, let me go ahead and um, get myself ready here. So, as Azetta said, I am with the Kentucky Kinship Resource Center. This is a relatively new uh, program that we have through the College of Social Work here at UK, and we're going to kind of get into that just a little bit. But before we do, I do want to talk a little bit about just kind of some background, understanding kinship, understanding what kinship care is. So it's always good to kind of see where we're at right now in terms of kinship. So here in Kentucky, it is important to know that kinship is a growing type of family care system, not only within our state, but even around the country. And you can kind of see from the statistics that I have here that it is actually a very predominant type of care that a lot of families are engaging in. So here in Kentucky, 1 of every 12 children are being raised by a relative or a family friend. And those are statistics as of 2021. So that's even a couple years old. In Kentucky, 96,000 children, or 9% of the state's youth population, are being raised by family members. Kentucky has as you can see, a very strong population of kinship families. As a result, we are one of the highest ranking states with kinship in the country. I think we are somewhere around the sixth highest state in the nation with kinship families. For every one child being raised by kin in foster care, there are 82 being raised by kin outside of foster care. So what that kind of shows you is that in terms of kinship, what we know as far as the number of children being raised is really probably not even completely accurate to what is going on here within Kentucky. We have a lot of kids that are being raised through a kinship foster situation, but there are so many children that are being raised in a lot of different types of kinship situations, whether it is being raised by grandparents or aunts and uncles, or even being raised by family friends just because they can't be at home. So I think it's important to point out that while we do know from the numbers that we do have that Kentucky has a high population, we also recognize that there are a lot of kids that we don't know about that are having to live in various situations just because they can't live with their birth parents. So, as I said, Kentucky does rank as one of the highest states in the United States within kinship. But even if you look at the numbers for the country as a whole, over 8 million children in the U.S. are being raised by family members. And this was a study that was done back in 2018 by the College of Social Work Dean, Jay Miller, and he had conducted some of this research just to see what those numbers look like. And as you can see, it's a pretty high number. So, of the populations and the numbers that we looked at, one of the biggest groups of kinship providers is grandparents. And I'm sure that you all know somebody, if you're not somebody yourself, you know somebody who is a grandparent raising their grandchildren. They do make up one of the largest groups that we see both here in the state and as a country. So nearly 3 million children in the U.S. are being raised by grandparents. Again, that's data as of 2020. In Kentucky, 51.762, which is an interesting number, but those are almost 52 52% of grandparents are responsible for raising their grandchildren. So that's a very significant number of grandparents who are parenting again, who've already raised their children, but now are raising their grandchildren. Um, for grandparents particularly, there are a lot of very unique issues that they face as a kinship caregiver that is unique to their relationship with their grandchildren. But just know that there are a lot of issues that do impact kinship in general. So let's take a minute just to talk about what kinship is. Azetta said it very well when she said that, kinship is comprised of folks who are related to children, and the state definition of that is that they are related by birth, marriage, or adoption. That's a relative care. And then it also includes something called fictive kin care. And fictive kin are folks who are not related by birth, marriage, or adoption, but have a very significantly emotionally significant relationship with the child or the child's family if the child happens to be under the age of 1. So for relatives, that's pretty easy to understand. Those are aunts, uncles, grandparents, cousins, siblings, anyone that has that biological relationship. But if they are fictive kin, that can be anyone. That can be anyone that has a relationship with a child. So that could be a babysitter, a neighbor, a coach, a teacher, a pastor, a church member, anybody that has a relationship with the child that the child is familiar with and feels comfortable with. So it's important that we're talking about kinship to kind of think about very briefly what are some of the circumstances that lead kids to this type of care. With it being such a predominant type of care for children, it is important to think about there are a lot of situations that result in kids having to reside outside of their birth home. Here at the Resource Center, when we get folks that come and participate in our programs, they generally come from lots of different kinds of situations, whether it is, a child welfare investigation by the Cabinet for Health and Family Services, or even if it's just private family situations that come up that, family members or even friends get involved in, and then they, as a result, assume the care of a child. So I've listed a few on here that can oftentimes result in a child having to reside somewhere with a family member or even a friend. But just know that there are a lot of situations within kinship that can result in a family having to take on the care of a child or a friend having to take on the care of a child. But it is as much as it is a prevalent relationship, it is extremely beneficial for children to remain with family members or friends, folks that they know, as opposed to having to go into a foster care situation. When children are not able to remain with a birth family, then the next best choice is for them to remain with family members. By doing so, not only do they have familiarity with their family and it's less frightening, it does keep them grounded in that family culture, that tradition, that connection that they have with their family so that they don't feel removed from their family unit. It creates a greater sense of well-being or happiness, general happiness. They have fewer behavioral problems. They have an increased chance of permanency. And it's also, kinship is a great way that siblings can stay together. When children often go into a foster care situation, and a lot of times they have to, of course, they move into a unique situation where they don't oftentimes know the caregivers or even the community that they're residing in. So kinship affords the opportunity to be able to keep those kids grounded within the family that they know and that they love. It also keeps them connected to their family culture. And that's very, very important. There's a lot of research that does document over time the benefits of kinship care for children who can be placed with a family member or a friend as opposed to going into a foster care situation. But it is very complex. Kinship care is a complex situation. It's a tough decision because what is unique about kinship is, as opposed to foster care, is that when you have a child that's placed in a foster care situation, that family has made a decision to provide foster care and have had time to get ready for for the placement. They've had a chance to get their home ready. They've had a chance to take a lot of classes. They've talked with their own family and have a lot of support built in. Kinship is very can be a very tough decision because of the emotional complexity. Because they are family members, oftentimes, situations that happen within the family unit can cause dissension and it can cause conflict within the family. It can cause caregivers, oftentimes, particularly grandparents who are in that caregiving role, it can create some conflict with other grandchildren. If they see that, one grandchild gets to live with grandma and gets all of grandma's time, but they can only see grandma at certain times or on certain holidays, or they don't get enough time with family members as they otherwise might. So that can cause some conflict. It can also cause conflict with adult members too, if they feel like, because that caregiver is having to assume care of, their sibling's child or their niece or nephew, they feel as though somehow they don't get as much of the caregiver's time. There's not as much resources, or they're even personally having to spend more money, to spend more time to take care of this child because, the birth parent was not able to. So, I think it's just really important to know that while kinship has very positive benefits, it has a lot of positive outcomes for kids. It can be very difficult, very difficult source of conflict for a lot of caregivers when they assume that care. It's also important to know too that, for a lot of these caregivers, because of the nature of how kinship happens, and it often happens as a result of a crisis-oriented situation, a situation that is an emergency, they often don't have the time to get prepared. They don't have the time to, to put back money or to build an extra room or to buy some extra clothes. So, from the point of the time that they get that call from the child welfare department, or even if a relative just calls and says, "Can you take my child or my son or my daughter?" From that very moment, they have a lot of decisions and a lot of things they have to figure out, and that can pose a lot of difficulty for caregivers. So just to list a few, whenever they do become, in a kinship situation, as I said, there's a lot of decisions that they have to make, and some of them involve financial challenges, family conflict. If they are taking care of children with special needs, sometimes figuring out and navigating those needs can be difficult. Understanding that now for that child they're raising, they're no longer a grandparent, they're a parent, and that role confusion can be a difficult change to make. How do I go from being grandma to now being mom? And that can be really difficult. In conjunction with that, just being able to navigate the role confusion, even with that child's parent, can be difficult. For grandparents, especially raising their grandchildren, they now are navigating that relationship change with the child, but also with their own child or their grandchild's parent. So there's a lot of changing, a lot of role confusion that can cause problems for a lot of caregivers. So all of this to emphasize the point that, kinship care is difficult for a lot of caregivers because of the decisions that they're facing, because of a lot of the struggles that become inherent for those caregivers that they now have to navigate parenting a relative or even a fictive kin child. And again, this slide kind of speaks more to even some more issues and struggles that a lot of caregivers have. At the Resource Center, we work with a lot of different caregivers who, are struggling with finding financial resources to be able to, buy extra food or buy extra clothes. They have physical health limitations, that their own physical health is compromised, and now they're taking care of real small kids, and chasing real small kids around the house. So, there's a lot that that these caregivers are overcoming in order to be able to provide this care. But I will say that what is so wonderful about all of the folks that I get to talk to here at the Resource Center is that even though there's a lot of challenges and even though there is a lot of, things to try to navigate, systems and programs and trying to find money and resources, every single one of them is so focused on taking care of their kids. They will tell me all the time, I don't know how we're going to do it, but we're going to figure it out because they want to make sure their kids are taken care of. And I think that that is such a wonderful thing. That even in the midst of trying to navigate things like KTAP or foster care, from a kinship perspective, they still want to take care of their kids and provide and make sure that they stay within the family. So let's kind of look just a little bit deeper into kinship so that I can kind of explain a little bit about how it's laid out. When caregivers are initially identified by the state, if there has been an investigation, when they are initially identified by the state to be able to provide kinship care and they're initially contacted, those caregivers have an option at that point. They can choose to take custody of a child and become the custodial parent, or they can choose to become a foster parent for that child, and the child would then be placed in the custody of the state, but residing with that caregiver so that they can access more benefits. Now, it's just a really important thing to know because a lot of those caregivers, as I was saying a moment ago, because they have a lot of financial struggles, oftentimes those needs are what drives this choice. If they know that they're going to need some financial assistance, then they'll get more financial assistance by becoming a foster parent to that child than by assuming custody. But it is often a hard decision for caregivers to make, to decide to become a foster parent and to allow that, your niece or your nephew or your grandchild to be placed in the custody of the cabinet is can be a really frightening thing for a lot of folks. So they do have the option to take custody, and there are some resources available for those who are relatives to the child. For those who are fictive kin, there's really not a whole lot of options in terms of becoming a custodial parent. So a lot of those folks will choose to become a kinship foster parent. But for folks who are not fostering, for those who were not identified as an option by child welfare, then a lot of those folks are taking care of kids just because those kids need some place to stay. So these are often what we call informal relationships. And these are, grandparents who are taking care of their grandchild, their grandson, granddaughter, as well as aunts, uncles, family, friends. They're taking on a child because maybe that child was, dropped off and left, or for whatever reason, have to have a place to stay. So they come and stay with relatives, or they come and stay with a family friend, and they were not placed there as a result of a state investigation. And so for those folks, the resources are not as much. For relatives, they still have option through the Kentucky Transitional Assistance Program to be able to get some financial support. And I've listed a few of the other resources that are available for those folks who, are needing support, but they just don't have, they're not doing it through the foster care system. And for those who are fictive kin, again, the resources are even less because KTAP is not an available resource for fictive kin because they are not related. So I think it becomes really important to note how how important it is that here at the Resource Center that we connect with kinship families and we try to help them find resources that can get them the supports that they need, whether that's clothing or money or food. We here at the Resource Center are working very hard to try to help families find just as much as is out there. So with that, I want to talk a little bit about the Resource Center and what it is that we try to do to kind of help combat some of these issues and try to help families. And we do that again through our overarching program, which is called the Kentucky Kinship Resource Center. We opened the Resource Center in April of 2020 with the vision to be able to connect caregivers with as many supports and resources as information that will help them not only in caring for their family, but also to increase their confidence. Hopefully, we're reducing stress and ultimately helping caregivers feel as though they can care for these kids and that they have the resources that they need to do it. When we started the Resource Center, we opened with 3 programs. We have a peer support program, a support group program, and a training program. And I'm going to talk a little bit about those today, as well as kind of let you know about a new program that we've recently started as well. So the first one that I'd like to talk about is called our KY-KINS, which is Kinship Information Navigation and Support. This is our individual peer support program. What we did was this was our first program we launched back in 2021, and our goal in this program is to connect we call them peer supporters, but these are folks who are also kinship caregivers that we have hired as employees, and we provided them with well over 55 hours of training so that they can now connect with kinship families anywhere within the state and be able to just help them navigate this whole kinship journey that families are now on. So some of the things that we do is we help connect them to resources that the family needs. So we'll get to know the families, we'll get to know what their current situation is, what their current needs are, where their struggles are, and we're going to try to help them find resources either at a state level or even at the community level to be able to meet those needs. So whether that is, just some kind of a cash payment, or if it's clothes, or if it's food, medical insurance, whatever, we're going to try to help them get connected to those resources that might be out there. We'll also try to support them through just everyday life situations because our peer supporters are also kinship caregivers. They understand the journey, they understand the struggles, they understand the challenges. And so they will work with caregivers on a weekly basis to be able just to kind of help them just navigate all these changes. We were talking a moment ago about the role changes that often happen and a lot of the different struggles that kinship caregivers face, whether that's health related or just parenting again after, after not parenting for over, 20 or 30 years. Our peer supporters can just kind of help walk them through and just help, be that sounding board to listen to them, offer them ideas, offer them suggestions, give them some support and encouragement, and just help them really just navigate to, those resources, those supports, those ideas that can really help them to be successful. And as I said, we are available to any caregiver anywhere within the state of Kentucky. All of our peer supporters provide virtually based services. So they'll talk with their caregivers by phone or by Zoom and be able to connect with anybody anywhere in the state. Because we do virtually based services, it allows us to reach more people simply because we don't have the traveling aspect involved. And of course, we'll be able to work with a family as long as it's helpful to the caregiver. So, we can work with them whether they're involved with the cabinet, whether they're not involved, if they have custody, if they don't. Our goal is if there is a caregiver providing kinship care, that we will be able to work with them and provide them the support that they need. So how KY-KINS works is that we have an online referral form. Anyone can refer a caregiver to a form or someone to the program, or someone can refer themselves. So that form, actually got it on a slide here. It looks like this. It's very, very short and it's mobile friendly. It's designed to be that way so that it's can be done, through your phone or when you only have a few minutes. But you can refer a family member, you can refer a friend, you can refer a neighbor, you can even refer somebody that you work with. And the idea is that once that registration comes through, it will come to myself and to our program coordinator, and they will reach out to just connect with them, talk with them about the program, offer them some initial supports, and then get them matched with one of our peer supporters. The peer supporters meet with them each week through either a face-to-face video call or a phone call if they're not able to navigate a video call, and just again start that connection process and start that resource matching process so that we can get them the resources that they need. Peer supporters can also be available if difficult situations happen and someone needs immediate assistance. Now, I always say that is within limits because we are not mental health providers. We're not even certified to do any kind of crisis type service. But a lot of times situations happen and caregivers just need someone to reach out to, even if it's just someone to vent to. And so their peer supporter can be available when they need that additional support. We also provide support but through this program, even to social workers, because a lot of these caregivers just have a lot of questions that social workers just unfortunately are very busy and can't get to answer. So our peer supporters can help get a lot of information for caregivers, help get some questions answered from their social workers if they're working with DCBS, as well as be able to document everything that they're doing and provide that support to the cabinet if it's needed. So when we started KY Kins, one of the goals was that we would, of course, serve relative and fictive kin caregivers, but we started by working only with those who have some type of custodial or informal relationship. In July of 2024, we expanded our program to be able to work with kinship foster parents. So very early on, I told you that once an investigation happens, a caregiver that's identified as a potential kinship placement gets offered a choice. They can choose to take custody or they can become a foster parent. We now, within the KKRC, are serving those kinship foster parents as well because the dynamics are the same. The resources are different, but the dynamics are largely the same. And so we wanted to be able to provide these services for foster parents as well. So now, regardless of whether someone's providing foster care or whether they have custody, we can be available to offer that support. Often I get a question if they have to be involved with DCBS or child welfare to be able to participate in our programs, and they do not. We'll work again with anyone, anywhere in the state who's providing kinship care, whether they want to connect for just a few weeks to get some resources, or if they want to continue on and have someone that they can just talk with and share ideas with and get new resources from. Our peer supporters are happy to do that. Of course, everything that we do here at the Resource Center is completely free. There is no charge in any way for any of the services that we provide. And for those who participate in the peer support service, there is an incentive for participation. We do surveys once a month that give us feedback about the impact of our program. And so once someone participates for 12 weeks, does those 3 surveys, they can get a check for $75 for participating and just letting us know whether the program helped them or not. So these are some of our flyers. On the right, you'll see that this is our KKRC flyer. It highlights all of our programs. And the one on the left is specific for the peer support program. So both of these flyers they exist as electronic flyers or even printable flyers so that, they can be sent by email as well as printed out in hard copy form. The electronic flyers do have clickable links that take folks directly to our program pages. So those are available either way, but these are, we try to put these out everywhere that we can so that hopefully, folks who are doing kinship care knows that there are supports out there for them. The next program that we have is our Kinship Virtual Interaction Program. That's our support group program, and we call them really more community groups. One of the things that I hear a lot from kinship families is that they feel so very alone and isolated. As I mentioned earlier, kinship is one of those unique care situations where it's such an emotionally complex dynamic because of the family relationships and some of the conflicts that can happen. It makes it a difficult situation. So we decided that there needed to be a way to develop some community among kinship caregivers so that they would know that there are other folks. And, here in Kentucky, quite a lot of other folks who are working through these same types of situations and who are needing support. And our hope is that through KinVIP, we're able to connect more people to each other so that they can share resources they've learned about, experiences they've had that can hopefully help newer caregivers who are looking for those kind of supports. So through KinVIP, we've set up different community groups that are designed, they meet by Zoom, so they are completely virtual. And they are designed again just to connect people together. We have facilitators who run these groups that all have kinship experience themselves. So, we have currently right now, I think we have 5 groups that we're running. We have 2 that are just general kinship care. These are just anybody doing kinship can come and, ask questions, get some support, meet other folks. We also have a grandparent connection group, a parenting challenges group. And those are for folks who just want that extra support while trying to, navigate child behavioral issues or discipline issues. That group is there to offer that support as well. And then we have a relatives raising kin group. So lots of opportunities just to connect people together. The new thing that we have started this spring is called the Gathering Spot. And that is actually, it's not a support group. It's a large community, online virtual community gathering that is ran by one of our peer supporters. And the goal behind that is really just to share resources. There are so many folks that need all different kinds of resources that we wanted to bring one of our peer supporters kind of into this program to be able to share those, answer questions, and gives just some immediate feedback. So we've been starting that, and that's on Tuesdays during the noon hour. And our hope again is through this program is to just create that community and help people to understand that there are a lot of other folks here in the state that have the same questions that they do and need the same kind of resources. And so we're hoping to kind of create some of that. The groups themselves are very casual community groups. They're there just to talk and to get ideas, share ideas, and to share resources. The other program that we have, our last program, is our Kinship Catalog. This is our training program. And we developed this program as a way to meet the need for caregivers to understand many of the issues that a lot of the kids that they're taking care of may be dealing with. So as I mentioned earlier, a lot of caregivers are caring for kids over 20, 30 years since when they raised their own kids. And so it's very important, particularly with some of the situations that many of the kids come into care with, whether that's trauma or whether that is, different situations involving abuse or neglect. They have a lot of needs that traditional parenting skills may not meet very well. And so we wanted to offer the catalog as a way to be able to, to just continue training for those caregivers to be able to get resources that could provide them with helpful information while they're parenting kids. And so we do that through a couple of different platforms. So we have a monthly live webinar series. Each month we offer a live webinar that's provided by a professional in the field on a specific topic related to kinship care. I think this month our next webinar is March 20th, which is next week, and it's going to focus on just how to work with birth families, how to, as a kinship caregiver where those family relationships can be very difficult to manage. this webinar is going to focus on, just working and communicating with birth parents of the kids that you're raising, so that, hopefully we can create and put some information out there that will help families be able to navigate that better for the children in their care. We do try to record those as much as we can, and make those available on our on-demand resource library. So if you go onto our catalog and you look at our on-demand resources, you'll see all the webinars that we've had since we started the program in 2021. There's only been a few that we've not been able to record just due to the presenters not being comfortable, but we have the majority of them on there so that folks can have access to that information anytime they need it. Um, it again, through the live webinar and through the on-demand resources, again, our hope and our goal is to try to just keep that information out there so that folks can access it and get information that will help them in the day-to-day care of their kids. The last aspect, the last platform of our Kinship catalog is our training library. And these are these are training modules. They can be accessed anytime. They're self-paced. They generally go around 10 to 15 minutes, but they are designed to be fun. They are designed to have different interactive elements just to kind of help caregivers learn and practice some of the information that is that's being taught through the modules. We have 5 up right now, and of course we have more plans to develop several more of them, but right now I think we have some modules up on, teenagers, making relationships, building relationships with teens, discipline with teens, communication, learning styles. We have several different ones up there, and they're, again, just really designed to try to help caregivers just kind of learn some new information and be able to practice that through the interactive pieces of the module. And I would like to say, before I take any questions, one of the newest programs that we are currently launching right now is called our Kinship Navigator program. And I'm really super excited about this program because it's going to allow us to put KKRC employees. So these are all employed by us here at the Resource Center. It allows us to put an employee in every region, in every service region throughout the state of Kentucky. And the goal of this program is to connect. Right now, this program works strictly with the cabinet in those families that are identified for kinship placement. But the goal in the future that we're moving toward with the Navigator program is that they will be able to connect with people within their region, to, again, be that connection for those initial resources, to help them find resources in their area that can serve the family, as well as be someone who can help them get connected to those resources, so that they have more immediate connection. They have more, hopefully, immediate resolution to some of the needs that they have. And we're able to, just really help families get even more connected to the rest of our programs through the navigators. So definitely be watching for more information on that, because we're going to be able, hopefully, to develop some more of that, to develop that program further out so that it'll become a more prevalent program for kinship families. So this is my name, my phone number, my email. If you have any questions at all, please feel free to ask me at any time. I'm happy to talk with you, answer questions, listen to specific situations. I'm helpful to do that, or happy to do that. So at this point, I didn't want to go over my 40-minute time limit, so it looks like I kind of hit the nail on the head. So I'm happy to take any questions that you all might have. Let's see. Let me look at the chat. Can custodial parents access the training modules and information? Absolutely. It's on our learning management site, and I can put that website address here into the chat so that you all will have it. Our Kin VIP and our catalog resources are all on our learning management system. Anybody can access them. You just have to set up an account. It's free. But you can access any of those resources at any time. Great. It's nice to meet you, Charlotte. I appreciate having UK Extension here. We try to send a lot of information to you all as well. So I'm going to go ahead, if it's okay, Azeda, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing. And then I want to put